me, Nikki. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. And today I'm here with the next 3 prompts for the amazing readathon. I don't know why I blanked on that. So, let me find them. Oh, it's 4. It's 4, that's right, I forgot. The first one was to read a book with a chilling cover or in a winter setting. And I had 2 that I tried and they didn't work for me, so I DNF'd those. But I did read Murder on the Orient Express, which I've seen the Albert Finney, the David Suchet, and the Kenneth Branagh movies and TV shows, so I knew the plot, but obviously it's a little different in the book, but it was just as good. So, I don't know, this seemed like Murder on the Orient Express is probably one of Agatha Christie's more famous Poirot books, but essentially Poirot is on the Orient Express traveling back to London. Well, the Orient Express doesn't go to London, but it hits a stop and then he can go on to London. And they get stuck. I can't remember where they got stuck, but it's winter and they're snowed in and there's a murder. There are 12 plus suspects. There might be more. There's like, because in the movie there's Poirot, who you know didn't do it, a friend of his who's like a manager for the Orient Express, who you know didn't do it, and a doctor. And I believe in some of the adaptations they make a doctor the suspect, but in the book the doctor is not. And there's like 12 or 13 passengers, and then the porters, I think is what they're called, and they're all suspects of this murder. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it, even knowing like the twist at the end. I liked it. I like Poirot. I always imagined David Suchet, even though I think I saw the Albert Finney one first. I would definitely recommend reading or watching them. I'm trying to think. Oh, the Kenneth Branagh one wasn't really... I mean, it adapted all the right points, but it wasn't really Poirot. Probably the David Suchet would be the best one, in my opinion, because I think of him as Poirot, but the Albert Finney one is quite good as well. So, or just read the book and then watch them. I listened to it on audiobook. It wasn't that long. I was listening to it on Spotify because I had a account, and then it said I ran out of listening hours. So I found it on YouTube, and I finished it there. I was like almost done. Poirot was just getting to be like, aha, I know everything. And they were like, no, you can't listen anymore for like a month. And I'm like, fuck you, Spotify. So I canceled my subscription. Excuse me. Then I read The Mask of Mirrors. This was for to read a book that takes place in a large city, and this takes place in, I can't remember the city name, Nad Ezera? Oof, I don't know how to say that. And it's about our main character, Ren, who is a con artist, and she is trying to trick her way into a noble house. She picks a house based on what she knows, and it doesn't go well. The house is in trouble. They're not quite as prominent as they once were. And there is a masked Zorro Batman-like figure called the Rook, because this is the Rook and the Rose series. I know it. Oh my gosh. And there is a bit of romance, which I didn't mind it too much, actually. It is a very big book. It's only 27 chapters, but there's a lot of information packed into here. It's really detailed world building. So, because it is the first book, so like, because sometimes, like, I'm reading another book right now, and there is world building, but the world is kind of similar to Earth at a certain time period that you could fudge it a little bit. This, nothing like Earth. Not that, well, there's some colonialism, but beyond that. So yeah, there's a lot of world building. There's a city. It's based on like, it's got like the Venetian feel because of the masks. There's like a tarot kind of stuff. What else is there? They have like grand balls, stuff like that. But like I said, there's colonialism. The rich people are assholes. What was I gonna say? I can't remember what I was gonna say. I had a point to all this. Oh, so yeah, a lot of world building. So that's sort of off-putting. Not to me, but I know other people who read it did. And then there are a couple reviews I saw where Ren is pretending, she's a con artist, to be the cousin of this noble house she wants to get into. And the guy that thinks, oh gosh, what's his name? Liato thinks Ren's his cousin, and there is some flirtation. And people are like, oh my god, that's like incest. Even though they're not really related. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but nobles did that. Google Habsburgs, they did worse than cousins. So, yeah, that, there is that. There are some sexual scenes, but not too bad. Is there any... I can't remember if there was a content warning or not. No. But I liked it, even with how everything was just sort of thrown at you, and you're like, gosh, okay, I don't understand, but I get it. I liked it. I don't know. So I'm excited to read the rest of the series. And then I read Scavenge the Stars, which was a celestial or godly word in the title, stars. I was reading The Palace of Eros, but my copy at the end has pages of another book about either the Kennedys or JFK or presidents in general, because there is Monica Lewinsky mentioned in the index. So I'm not sure. This is very disappointing. But I did read this. This is Count of Monte Cristo sort of retelling. This one has some world building, but it's left. Some of it is left to the imagination, not like Mask of Mirrors. This is probably because it's the Count of Monte Cristo retelling. You can kind of get away with that, I would guess. But this is about Amaya, who is our count. She is presumed dead by the person who did it. And, she's found by the mysterious stranger. She learns to con and has all this riches. And she goes back to her town. There is no map, which is sad. I would have liked that. And her mother and father are dead. And she goes back for revenge, not on just herself, but her mother and father, and to try to find out the truth of how she ended up in a debtor's... It's not a prison. They're like kids on a boat, and it's not very nice. Some of them do die, unfortunately. So, yeah, and she's tricking... specifically Ko Mercado, because his father has something to do with it, and she actually feels really bad about it because she likes Ko and then later his sister, and it doesn't go quite as planned, because this is a duology, so yeah. I liked it. I liked Ko. I felt really bad for him because his dad wasn't the nicest, but his sister was really great, and I liked Amaya. She was a little focused on revenge, but again, that's sort of the point of the Count of Monte Cristo. And she's only like 17 or 18, and Ko's, I think, around the same age, maybe 19 or 20. But yeah, it's a good... I don't think the second book is the rest. I think it was just this book was Monte Cristo, and then the second book is something else. I liked all the kids that Amaya brought with her, and they helped her, and she was going to help them get back to their families and that kind of stuff. And sort of some of the villains, kind of like I talked about in Ruin Songs, some of the villains were like over the top villainy, but sometimes you like that. You just like knowing who the bad guy is. Because in Mask of Mirrors, some of them, you could be like, oh, that's the bad guy. But then other ones, you're like, oh my god, that was the bad guy? Or, so sometimes I just like to know, yeah, that's the bad guy. They're going to get what's coming to them. So, but yes, like that. I'm going to read the sequel, which I have somewhere. Oh, I didn't make a thing for this yet. The next book I read was The Three Richards, which was a book with low ratings that you think you'll love. Let me find the ratings for this one. It has 53 ratings, 8 reviews, and 3.26 stars. And I understand why. So I thought it was going to be like part 1 about Richard the First, part 2 about Richard the Second, part 3 about Richard the Third, and then sort of like how they are similar and different. And you do get how they are similar and different, but each one only gets a chapter. And then the rest of the book is sort of like, it does repeat itself a couple times. So it's almost like this was a thesis paper. You could definitely see this in a classroom. It's kind of dry. It's not the most engaging nonfiction I've ever read. Because they talked about like how each of them dealt with kingship, chivalry, and warfare, as the title says. How they did with the church and family. While they only get like one little chapter each. So, but overall, I don't think it was horrible. I probably knew the most about Richard I. I've always kind of liked him. I didn't know a lot about Richard II. And I think I only knew about Richard III. Yeah, gross. Something in my shoe. Because of like Shakespeare and just sort of what I learned from history classes. And this was written before they found his body. So there's like, where is it? There's a part, I can't remember where, maybe at the last chapter, about how they all died, where they talked about, maybe it was this part, I don't remember, but they talk about each of their portraits and how Richard I is obviously looking like this because that's what they did back then. And Richard II was very conscious of his appearance and how he would like to be painted. And then this is Richard III. So they talked about how like Richard had how accurate it was, and you know he does have a slight uplift in one shoulder. So you would think if it wasn't accurate, you know what I mean. So he can only assume that Richard had not a hump, but like a thing, and they did find out he had scoliosis, I want to say. And I thought it was interesting that it seemed like, I don't know if it's, because I guess he wrote like a really, not definitive biography on Richard II, but like a really well-known biography about R2. So he might have known a lot about Richard II, but it seems like because Richard I was so long ago, we don't know a whole lot about him and how he would have, you know, settled in England. And Richard III was king for like a couple of years, and it was turmoil from beginning to end. So there's not like a lot known. And even though R2 had some problems, it's pretty, there's a lot of information about what happened. And then I also found it interesting that each of them died a sort of grisly death, and they didn't have any living children when they died. I think, or legitimate children. I think Richard I might have had an illegitimate son somewhere. Richard III's son died, and I don't think Richard II had any. When Richard I died, oh God, can you believe this? Like, he's almost well known as being like the battle king. He was walking around on not a battlefield, it was night, but he was like doing a patrol without any armor on, and it was a lucky shot to like the shoulder, and they couldn't get it out, and it turned gangrenous and infected and died. Like, my dude, right? And then Richard III got killed at the Battle of Bosworth. And then Richard II, I always get him and Edward II confused with how they died for some reason. Oh, okay. Richard was thought to have starved to death. Because I think Edward II was also starved to death, or he was the one who originally had the poker up his bum. I get them confused, and I don't know why. So yeah, that wasn't, none of those deaths are pleasant, it sounds like. So yeah, you know, it was educational as nonfictions are supposed to be, but it was pretty dry and perhaps it wasn't quite what I was wanting. So yeah, those are the books I read. There are 2 more prompts left. I have picked my one, and then I have to find another one. So yeah, that's it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.